All of us as human beings have blind spots. Things we don't know about ourselves, things we don't know about other people, about the world, a lack of awareness about how our words or actions might impact people, or how we might show up in the world according to other people and their perceptions. And we all stand to benefit from learning about our blind spots. We can benefit from knowing how our actions might impact other people. We can benefit from knowing what we don't know and grow as a person in our knowledge and how we navigate the world. But if you are neurodivergent, autistic, or ADHD, you're probably going to have an adverse reaction to being informed about your blind spot, because we all have a long storied history of people telling us that there is something wrong with us. It's more likely when somebody points out our blind spots that our rejection sensitivity gets triggered and we become reactive or defensive. We shut down, we withdraw, we start to avoid because we're trying to protect ourselves. From an early age, showing up in neurotypical social environments, in our authentic neurodivergent communication styles, thought processes, and behaviors, we got a lot of pushback. We got told that we're weird, that we're wrong, we're bad, we're defective, we're offensive, we're inappropriate. And we didn't understand why, because we were doing what our wiring sometimes dictated. We were showing up in the only way we knew how to show up. We were communicating in the only way we knew how to communicate, and we thought in the style that was natural to us. But apparently, according to these neurotypicals surrounding us, we weren't measuring up. We weren't attaining their standards of normal, what's considered normal, behavior or communication. And we were made very conscious of our differences because societies as a whole like to reinforce norms, often through social punishment. So that could be judgment, that could be exclusion, that could be bullying and other forms of marginalization. And if you grow up with this happening to you multiple times, you internalize this form of ableism in the form of shame. You come to believe that yes, there must be something inherently wrong or defective about you, that you are undeserving, that you are unlovable. You develop shame scripts about yourself and your value and your right to be your authentic self. And so a lot of us have difficulty growing as neurodivergents and adopting a growth mindset because growth is very painful when it necessitates people, as we perceive it to be, criticizing us for just being who we are. And it often feels very oppressive because the suggestions for growth are suggestions that we conform to neurotypical standards. Now, if we were to reverse roles and go to neurotypicals and actually you should think, communicate, and behave the ways that we deem socially appropriate, I'm sorry, no, you're going to be judged, punished, bullied, excluded if you don't. And naturally, there'd be resistance. So the fact that a lot of us have rejection sensitivity, a lot of us are resistant to what's deemed growth by neurotypicals is completely logical, and it makes sense. And I think the emphasis here is in wanting to understand your blind spots. It's not to conform. It's not to appease neurotypicals. It's to become wiser, more knowledgeable, more self-aware, developing emotional intelligence. These are things that, independent of your neurotype, we all stand to benefit from. And neurotypicals are no less in requirement of this development. It's not something that we are the only ones who have to develop. They have to develop as well. They stand to benefit, and they have an obligation, I believe, just as much as us, to develop these things. And for them, that might also look like them learning to become more well-versed in our communication styles, so that this double empathy problem doesn't happen, where they misunderstand us, we misunderstand them, but then the fault is always laid at our door because we think, behave, communicate differently. So yes, it's very difficult to want to approach growth, to want to approach change, especially if we have, as part of our defensive reaction, become very rigid and withdrawn and avoided and slotted ourselves into a very small but safe box. It requires braving vulnerability, coming out of that box, making an admission that I guess I don't know everything, that that my actions can impact people a certain way independently of my intentions, that my style might rub people the wrong way. But it doesn't mean that there's necessarily anything wrong. It just means that I might need to modulate rather than mask, adjust slightly according to my audience, read the room, for example. That's something that I struggled with as a neurodivergent, getting feedback, whether constructive or not very particularly constructive, about how I showed up in the world. I was like, okay, well, I can be emotionally intelligent, self-reflective, and just try to read the room a little bit more and pace myself in what I share and what I don't share, and then whether I should say certain things in some company but not in others. And that's something that's, again, universal. Whether you're neurodivergent or neurotypical, you stand to benefit from that. So I think when we get in a situation where we have a growth opportunity and we are invited to look at our blind spots, resisting the urge to shut down and for that shame script to get activated and to take this as one more proof that we are faulty or defective and go, well, no, this is a human thing. It's not a neurodivergent thing. It's not a me thing. And I'm on a journey just like everybody else towards self-betterment, self-growth, learning to be more kinder, compassionate, empathic human being. And that growth is not just the work for me to do, it's work for everybody to do. So the people who are willing to point out blind spots are also just as prone and deserving as much as anybody else of being aware of their blind spots too. This is the beauty of our being in relationships with others, is that we can help strengthen each other by sharing what the other person doesn't know and what we might know, and then vice versa, combining our observations, our knowledge, our perceptions to grow as a collective, not just as individuals. So growth opportunities, to sum up, are not just for neurodivergence. They are for neurotypicals as well. It's a lot harder for us to do because of the history of structural oppression and being expected to conform to ableist norms. And a lot of our defensive mechanisms exist to protect us, but prevent us from growing. And if we're willing to surrender those norms, the defense mechanisms, and adjust how we show up, growth can occur. Have you struggled with people pointing out your blind spots because of rejection sensitivity, because of shame scripts being activated from being neurodivergent and having a history of people judging, criticizing, calling you out? I would love to hear all about your experiences.